It costs money.
I thought people listen to this stuff on YouTube.
Well, like half of them do.
Oh, okay.
And if you do listen to this on YouTube, you can find us on Spotify and iTunes and the Google Play Store and Stiwtcher.
Hey, this stuff's supposed to go in the back. What are we talking about?
I think it's good to put this stuff in the front at least a little bit. So go there and find us there. I'm your host, LukeMadrid, and this is our co-host.
Yeah,
Producer guy.
Co-producer, host, extraordinaire.
Andrew Haskins.
Yeah.
And this is The Whole Rabbit.
Where what do we do?
Where we don't just investigate the collar that the bunny's wearing, strangely, because rabbits don't wear collars. We don't just take fur samples and analyze them for their chemical makeup or rub its cottontail all over our faces in ecstasy. No, we investigate the whole rabbit. And today we are glimpsing into the afterlife, or as most of us would say, heaven and hell, because that's where you go when you die. Right, Andrew?
I guess if you believe in major religions.
I don't believe in major religions. I'm still afraid of hell.
Yeah, that is kind of... Well, like, hell's totally interesting.
Yeah, well, think about it for 2 seconds.
Things are cool as hell. Things are hot as hell. Things are like, scary as hell.
I like when things are hot as hell. That's hot as hell.
Yeah. Hell's a weird thing.
No, if you think of it for more than 2 seconds...
Then there's this, like, a whole other thing about hell yeah, so...
Hell yeah!
Put that in your pipe and smoke
Hell
it.
yeah! Yeah, but if you think it... Well, come on, man. Do you know those people that are like, I'll see you in hell? You know what I mean? Or, like, right before they die. And they're like, I'll see you in hell.
Well, yeah, that's so cool. Like, don't you think all the bad people should be, like, put into a box that, like, smells stinky? It's, like, gross. Sweaty, and they should suffer. Oh wait, we do that to people.
Yeah, it's called Earth.
It's called prison.
So what I was taught about hell is that it lasts forever and it's the worst pain imaginable, both physical and spiritual. I think if there's gonna be one thing you're gonna try to avoid, it should be that, right?
Yeah, like that's like a huge argument of like the evangelical cats. They're all like, oh, you know, what do you got to lose? Eternal damnation, or, you know, just accepting Jesus. Like, it's like you're gonna die either way. You might as well hedge your bets. Like, that is one of the ideas.
That's one of my principal criticisms, but it also is a very enticing, seductive part of religion because, you know, it's fire insurance. That's my kid laughing. She's in the studio today, so deal with it, I guess.
Yeah, I guess. Or we could get really good at editing, which we both know we're not going to do.
Yeah, I don't see that happening anytime soon. I edit a lot. I don't edit well, but I do it, you know. Let's get back to hell. And heaven, too. I have a distinct memory when I was a little kid of thinking of heaven and getting a little bit freaked out. Because, like, can you imagine forever? Even something good. Forever and ever and ever. I don't know. It just was a freaky idea. Imagine you just hanging out with God, who's just like some strange dad figure.
Oh, like he'd be like the weirdest ultimate dad figure that's like never around.
Like this, but no, now he's there.
But yeah. Now he wants to talk. It's like totally like the Indiana Jones scene where they're on the blimp, where Sean Connery's like, "Oh, what do you want to talk about?" And you're just like, "Well, I don't want to talk about anything right now."
Well, yeah, it's like imagine being in a place where like the sun never sets and you never go to sleep and you never get hungry, and it sounds kind of miserable after a while, right? I don't know. As a little kid. Even the idea of heaven sort of scared me, like, from that perspective.
Well, I never really put much thought into that, like, the whole eternal thing.
It goes on forever!
Well, like, for a while until, like, I was sitting there playing Kingdom Come in the monastic part.
This is quite recent in your life, Andrew.
Yeah, and, like, I started to play that, and, like, the days would just tick by, and I'm like, wow. You know, it's just this and that and this and that, and it's the same thing every day, and it's like... Wow, this is like really getting you prepped for eternity.
But in heaven, you don't even need to eat.
Yeah, but think about that. That's like really getting you prepped for eternity. Like,
and there's just clouds everywhere.
Just monotonous activities.
And all the furniture is just as shiny gold and silver.
It's too nice to use, I'll tell you.
Forever.
That's for guests.
Everlasting is maybe... People argue about all these words and what they mean. Whatever. I mean... so, okay, now I've turned heaven into hell. Great. But, so...
Well, you've done it.
Most hells, at least the hell I was taught or learned about, because I went to a Catholic preschool, but that's as much religious school as I went to. I guess that's really all you need, though. You
they
give
gotta ground it into you like right quick while
it's
you're
like
young.
it's like Hitler Youth. You give them first 5 years and just for life. So even though I don't believe any of that shit, I'm still scared of hell. I don't know if I'll ever get over that. Like, it's spooky. Like, okay, so in the Quran, there's 7 levels to hell, and each one is like worse than the next. There's flames that crackle and roar, fierce boiling waters, scorching wind, black smoke. It's wretched. Inhabitants sigh and wail. Their scorched skin is constantly exchanged with new skin so the torment can be tasted anew. They drink festering water. A death appears on all sides and they can't die. Everyone's linked together in chains and wearing pitch for clothing and fires on their faces.
Could you believe, like, could you imagine, like...
No, I can't. It's horrible.
No, like, being at a party and trying to get away from that one cat who's all like, well, I'm dead. Remember that guy?
Forever. So that's hell in the Quran. But most scholars... the jury's kind of out. Like, I think if you look at most of it, it appears that people get forgiven eventually in Islamic hell, and they eventually end up in paradise. So that doesn't sound that bad, I guess. I mean, that stuff sounded terrible, but if it's not forever, then it's not forever. You get end up in paradise forever.
Well, okay, so like there was also like some sort of evangelo kind of deal of talking about that concept as well. It's not like necessarily in Christianity, it's more of one of those apocryphal Christian things.
Where like after a while you're forgiven.
Well, okay, so this is the idea, is after a while all the people in heaven move God to free all the people from hell, because they're like, oh, that's so fucked. I knew some of those people,
Yeah, like, how could you be in heaven when, like,
Like, eventually they pray enough.
Like, your
sister... They save everybody.
Your sister who, like, OD'd or whatever on pills because she was, listening to Owl City a little too much. And, she kind of accidentally offed herself with a doorknob or something. You don't want to be thinking about her forever or in eternity. Yeah. Like, what are we gonna do? What are we gonna do in heaven without Chris Cornell and Chester Bennington? What are we gonna fucking do?
Eventually, we gotta bring them back up. Eventually, but like, that is like an apocryphal thing in Christianity. It's not necessarily in Catholicism, because Catholicism, they really gotta ground in that guilt, and the fear, so they can control you. That's what it's about.
Well, it doesn't really leave any other options. If you're going to be suffering for eternity, you might as well just pick the option that's going to get you out of it. Fire insurance, I'll worship anything if it's going to keep eternal suffering away from me, right?
Yeah, so the eternal suffering's like definitely not. I really like the more of the Hindu or the Buddhist perspective on the whole hell. Is like, hell's a place you put yourself in. It's kind of more of a situation. Which used to be the old school term for it. Like, the use of the word is just like, hell's a state. It's not necessarily a place. It's like more of a quality of being.
If you want my opinion, yeah, I think so. I think hell is a state, and you can be in it while you're alive, and you can probably be in it when you're dead, and it's just it's like going into a negativity.
Yeah, it's like that dude said when he was channeling Lucifer.
Yeah, like Ivan Teller, you get into
Ivan Teller, he's channeling Lucifer, and Lucifer explained it. You just go into a negativity.
Yep. That's what happens. You go into a negativity, and
it happens to us all, man.
Happens to us all, fallen angels, humans, spirit entities. You go into a negativity, and that's where you are. That makes sense to me. So, and there's a great show with Duncan Trussell and Jason Loeb about Bardos, And I think that sort of works for Buddhist hell, right? That's like Buddhist hell. Buddhist hell is like just being reborn in a way.
Yeah, so Buddhist hell is like, number one, you could be suffering a lot more than you need to be. That's one concept of Buddhist hell. And then the second part is you die and you're reincarnated into even more suffering. But it's still a wheel that like you transfer through it.
Because life is suffering.
Yeah. So like basically it's like Buddhist hell is, oh, well, you're doing bad shit, so bad shit's happening to you because you're not making the right actions. And that's causing you to go up and down the wheel, which is causing you to suffer, which is why you find yourself in a low point of the wheel.
Well, we watched, I think it was about an hour-long documentary, the Tibetan Book of the Dead, and it was about Tibetan lamas helping a person through the death process.
Yeah, that's the best.
And the reading of the Liberation Through Hearing during the intermediate state Tibetan Book of the Dead. That's what they call it here on Wikipedia, the Bardo Thodol, I think. That's what they were reading in the documentary. And it was like, you die, and they would go to your home, and they would, put a little shrine altar up for you thing, and they would, as you're dying, read you stuff to remind you to stay in the right state of mind so you could pass through the Bardos, or the different states of being between this life and the next life. It was really cool because they moved him onto his onto his right side.
Yeah, they explained it. They positioned him like Buddha on his death, so that his energies would flow more peacefully.
Right. And then they would tell him, oh, you're dying, and this is going to happen to you. And then after you die, they believe that you can still, that the recently dead are still very sensitive to sound. So they spend a lot of time reading to the dead body and trying to guide it through its different states.
And here's the weird thing is I noticed that was more of a social cohesion mechanism more than anything, if you want to get like completely rational skeptic.
Yeah, completely rational skeptic. It was a lot of therapy for the people who were living.
Yeah, because he was telling them, no, don't cry, you'll confuse him. You need to be strong and just, wish him love and peace. And it seemed more of like a way to keep the community and the family more intact even after a death.
Right. And it also helped fixate their mind on the idea that their loved one, first of all, was dead, like wasn't going to be in their life anymore, but that they were not gone forever.
Like they're not completely obliterated from the universe.
Right. They're not completely obliterated from the universe, that all life changes, and it's sort of like a healthy way of letting go. It's like you're not even clinging to them as a spirit in the afterlife. You're like letting them take on a new life entirely. It's really like a back to zero kind of idea. And near the end, they talk about how the little girl asks the older master, like, so basically...
That wasn't a girl. That was a boy. You can't tell when they're young.
I just thought it was a little girl.
Really?
Yeah.
It just looked like a llama getting trained.
I had watched it with my mom before, so maybe she had thought it was a little girl, and then that's why I think it's a little girl. Besides, I also think it's a little girl. But anyway... Doesn't matter.
I'd assume the boys are trained by the males and the girls are trained by the females.
I guess. I don't really...
I would assume. I don't even know if they even have female priestesses or monks.
I don't really know.
Yeah, either do I, so...
I guess that's something we should know. Well, this is not the Buddhism episode, but we will do the Buddhism episode. And we'll probably talk more in depth about the Bardos then. But the one important thing I do want to say about the Bardos... the transitional states between...
Well, because they said, if you go to heaven, that's still a Bardo.
Yeah. Okay, let's discuss that for a minute. So, once again, the Bardos are the transition state between this life and the next life. Whether that life is a new incarnation into a body, or your next life in, Nirvana, or...
Yeah, they talked about, don't incarnate as a god, because you could just die suddenly, and...
Yeah.
That was part of the reading to the dead and trying to guide him to a proper reincarnation.
I found that documentary to be my favorite, and if you had to just pick up my opinions about what I think happens after you die, it's probably because my mom is into this stuff, and I've probably been indoctrinated to believe in it a little bit. But I believe it's true. I would imagine that when you die, it's exactly like what they said. Let me talk about this for a minute. So, the process that you go through when you die, they say that your body is composed of the 4 elements, and those 4 elements start to decay. So it'll feel like you're being blown apart by gusts of wind and burned by fire and tossed and drowned in water and crushed beneath rocks. And
you said mountains, and like it was epic. Like
yeah,
made it all epic sounding.
I've had experiences like that with really intense fevers as a kid, like fever dreams, like the feeling of being crushed beneath mountains and like being infinitely small or infinitely big, but uncomfortably so, and having it be attached to like weird bodily feelings and it being like really kind of horrifying, to be honest. So I could
like the razor line. Have you ever gotten that?
I don't know if I've got that.
Gotten that fever feeling where there's like a line that you can just feel, and it's like one dimensional, and just like
that must be yours.
Oh, dude, it's the worst.
The one that I get that reminds me of these Bardos states is I'll be having a fever and I'll wake up and it'll be like everything will be in time lapse where time is moving like super fast. Like if the TV's on, it'll be playing in fast motion. If there's people in the room, they'll be moving in fast motion. And the blankets feel kind of like hot metal on me. And it's equally uncomfortable to take them off as it is to leave them on. It takes the feeling of like the fast motion is the most uncomfortable thing in the universe. It takes a little while for that to like stop. And when it does, it's like, okay, thank God that's over. Like that's my fever dream thing. But that I would imagine that's some of the stuff you would experience when you're dying, right? I mean, or it could be.
Dan Winter. Dun dun dun.
You love talking about Dan Winters. Let's just have an episode about Dan Winters already.
We have to do an episode about Dan Winters.
We don't bring up
a crazy psycho guy.
You bring up Dan Winters more than we ever bring up Robert Anton Wilson or Jordan Peterson. I probably bring up Jason Louv like every other episode.
Well, the guy, it's fascinating because he talks and babbles like a psycho wizard guy, and then like if you question him on like actual hardcore physics, he's like, it like stabilizes him and makes him talk like a normal person. It's the weirdest thing in the world.
Okay. So
he talks about like there being things that are common with near-death experiences, which are similar views that people get on high levels of LSD.
Now, I had a near-death experience when I was younger than my kiddo now. So I think I was 4, and I related the experience to my mom after it happened, and she wrote it all down, and then she's told it to me, many, many times. So like I have like a game of telephone back to myself, like what I experienced, because I don't really remember it, but I do remember being sick at that time. I remember being really sick. I guess we could talk about that later, but I just wanted to finish up on the Bardos because that's part of like Buddhist hell and Buddhist heaven. So like, yeah, so you go through these Bardos, right? After your elemental body disappears, you end up on like these planes of existence that are made of your mind. And then I guess you're tempted by demons and actually benevolent entities as well that are also projections of your mind, and that you are going to be tempted and beguiled and chased by these beings until you realize that they're projections of your own mind and of your own awareness. If you don't awaken to that awareness, you basically what it says is the trip gets worse and worse and worse, and you forget more and more and more, and you get more and more lost, and
the demons get bigger and crazier and scarier.
Yeah, and there's like armies of them, and so you start running away from them, and basically the universe becomes some bizarre like Pornhub scenario where you just have like all these different windows into like all people like fucking basically, and you can like go into their bodies. You can escape your plight into their bodies and experience their ecstasy,
and then get born
through that process. And you can like, according to the documentary we saw, that can happen to like you could accidentally end up in a hole. Like if it's cold at winter and you want to just hide in a hole, you could end up incarnating as like a fox. I don't know if I that sounds kind of brutal, but
well, it's like, okay, so even like a gross smelling hole like seems like a refuge from what you're dealing with,
Right. And so part of the
like a cold, gross smelling hole.
And what we saw in the documentary was he was reading to him like, you're about to go into your next life. Look for good parents and a good home so you can have another chance at becoming enlightened and escaping the wheel of karma and the wheel of reincarnation. The cycle of reincarnation is what he said.
And he also talked about like him being like a spirit wandering without rest. Like he could like move, but he can't stop. Like that's something they can't do. They can't stop.
Yeah, so there's a period there as a spirit, where they can move through anything and go all over the universe, but there's nowhere for them to like rest. That's something that Christ talks about in the Gospels of Thomas, that like, a fox has a foxhole and a bird has a bird nest, but humans don't have anything. There's nowhere for them to rest. And he's saying that about humans, not just spirits, but presumably spirits as well. And so Christ is urging his followers to make a place of rest in their own soul or in their own heart or whatever. So that's kind of that speaks to the idea that having an incarnation is something you want, because
how else are you gonna have the experience, man?
Yeah,
you gotta incarnate. It's all the rage. It's powerful fun.
Yeah, man. So it depends on, I don't know. We've gotten all optimistic again. We should get back to these religions that believe that you get like one shot at this like horrible twisted game, and then you end up being tortured, or most likely tortured for eternity, and maybe rewarded if you were like naive enough to follow all the rules all the time. Because it talks about that. Like, okay, so we've talked about we talked about Islamic hell. We didn't even mention what it's called. It's called Jahannam. Oh no, I said it wrong. Jahannam. Oh no, I did this a lot earlier.
It's not even worth pronouncing, really.
Jahannam.
That ain't real hell.
Jahannam.
I'll tell you what.
No, I like Islamic hell because you get out after a while. I knew you was going to get us flagged. No, I like Muslim hell because when you goes there, you might get out. They forgive you. You get some forgiveness. You go to my hell, you stay in my hell forever. Forever. You don't even know what you did. You just there.
I'm gonna go downstairs and watch.
Okay.
Let's talk about Christian hell for a minute.
Okay, we don't have to research that.
Yeah, we're just steeped in it.
We're just born in America.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Christian hell, okay. Christian hell is pretty easy to avoid. I've been getting told this my whole life.
Which one do you want to do? Do you want to do historically accurate Christian
hell?
No.
Or
do you want to do like all that junk that they added?
All the junk
that they tacked on to the end of the freaking...
Yeah, because that's the stuff everyone believes, including me, when I don't want to believe in it.
All right.
That's
all right.
what
And then I'll clear it up from my actual...
Because I have a super...
research on the matter.
Okay, cool. Because I have a super secret Jesuit that lives in my head. We talked about him on a former episode where he's always trying to convince me...
we locked him in the fucking dungeon.
That just makes him stronger.
Your mind.
Just makes him stronger. He's got insiders down there. You can't just lock him in the dungeon. Anyway...
The dungeon of your mind, man. Like, you gotta keep that person away.
It just makes him stronger. He don't care. That just justifies. That just proves what he has to say. Yeah.
His piety.
It justifies all of his piety. Okay. So Super Secret Jesuit says, all right, it's pretty straightforward. Look it. This is how you stay out of hell. You accept the Lord Jesus Christ as your personal Savior. You accept that Jesus Christ was sacrificed on your behalf to cleanse you of and forgive you of your sins through the blood of Christ, that you will be forgiven for being born evil of sin and be allowed entrance
because some chick ate a fruit
into heaven, Andrew, and then you'll get into heaven. I can't really tell you what's in heaven, but it's probably a lot like what the Muslims see it as, is a big walled garden, right? With stuff in it that's great. And then, there's choirs of angels and stuff that sing God's praise, the seraphim, like forever and ever.
Well, okay, so the idea would be like they go to paradise, but paradise is the Garden of Eden. That's paradise. Like it's like the pre-fall state. Like that would be like the concept, right?
Well, now we have to actually get into like what the actual stuff says, right?
But the Christians don't even believe in that. They believe you go to heaven. That's a completely other area. Like Christians are like, oh, we're beyond the garden we grew up. Like we go off to fucking deal with all the other spirits of the universe.
Because technically, like that's not really what happens. Like that's just like what we've been like. That's
my idea right here.
Hold on. Okay. Technically speaking, nobody's in heaven or hell yet. Everyone is just awaiting judgment.
Oh, it was Catholicism. Because Christianity's so split apart into like different thoughts.
I'm not even comfortable like separating Catholicism from that word Christianity because it's like because they worship Christ.
Well, yeah. So you got like
They're the Church of Christ. Like,
you got the Orthodox. You got like the Protestants.
okay. Well, I guess now we just jumped into all of it all at once.
The Anglicans.
Okay, let's talk about what the Hebrew beliefs are. And I'm going to stop saying moose lambs, but I saw it on SNL, and it was really funny. So I'm sorry. That was the funniest thing I've ever seen on SNL. So I will stop saying it because I actually really like Islam, and like I like Ice Cube as well. But let's move on. So what is the Hebrew belief? Like, is there a heaven and a hell? This is the one you researched, and I know a little bit. What is that?
Okay, so, yes, there is a heaven, yes, there is a hell, and no, you don't end up in either.
Why? Where do you end up?
You just end up in the place they called sheoul, which is just like the land of the dead.
Sheol.
Sheol. It's Hebrew's a weird language, so it's got like Star Wars pronunciations.
And for some reason, I've kind of vibed with this one too.
Okay, so this is the cool thing about Judaism. It's all like, oh yeah, heaven's for God and his creatures. Hell is for like the evil spirits and the demons and all the wicked pagan gods, and all the people. Well, they just die and go to Sheol, the freaking realm of the dead, which is just kind of like a void plane of the dead. It's like the nether realm where all the dead people hang out. Like zombies and stuff. They just hang out there.
What does it look like there, though?
See, that's the thing. There's no descriptions of it. It's just like, oh, that's just the land of the dead.
That's the problem with all the, like, Western religions. They don't ever give you, like, I guess they do sometimes.
Well, like, they got, any pastor in the South can tell you what hell's like and about, and, like, where to get where to go to the right corner store and stuff.
Yeah, I guess you're right. I'm not gonna let that one fly. I'm gonna retractify that before I say it. But yeah, okay. So Sheol, I imagine it's dark.
Yeah. Okay. So the only real reference to Sheol or Sheol that I've heard is one of the apocryphal stories of Lucifer, where he was like, flying through the universe, goes to Sheol, meets like these dead Jews who are assembling rocks and making houses and kind of like living their lives like they were just normal people. And then he like took those people to heaven and gave them back to God. And he's like, these are your people, these are yours.
I don't want them.
Yeah, I don't want them.
Get them out of here. See,
So
that's a good idea.
That's like the only thing I've ever heard of Sheol is like there was one group assembling stuff and they kind of got booted out to heaven.
Okay. Well, we're going to have to... All right. So, you go to Sheol. Well, what happened? Does God ever take you to heaven?
No, it's just that's where you go. That's where you belong.
Your family's there, right?
Yeah, you kind of just exist forever with your ancestors.
But what if you're like a good Hebrew? Do you still go there?
Well, you kind of get like merits in heaven, so like evil spirits stop fucking with you, or they can't fuck with you, and like good spirits will help you out or listen to you.
Okay.
Like, you can compel them to do stuff. It's more of like you kind of gain authority in the universe, but you really don't physically get any motion or higher station besides that.
Okay, so let's go to Christianity now. So
Okay.
everyone is just like dead in the earth, and are they in Sheol and they're awaiting Judgment Day?
Okay, so like, are we doing the good stuff or are we doing the fun stuff?
Let's just go for it, man.
Okay,
Whatever
so
comes
So
first.
the old school stuff, it used to be, because they were trying to like explain this to pagans, is like, okay, you go to Hades, right? And like Hades controls Hades. He controls the land of the dead. And
Okay.
they were trying to explain, okay, this guy who was an embodiment of the Judaic omni-god, he came down, died, but then like he beat up Hades, and then he opened the door for all the other spirits after he like resurrected.
I think I saw this in Hercules.
Yeah, like that was totally like the idea that Jesus did. Like that's how they converted the Greeks. A lot of the Greeks, they're like, oh yeah, well your scary god that you're all really, really afraid of, our god beat him up, stole his stash of souls.
Yeah, I don't want to go to Hades. I'd rather just go to heaven. I'd rather go to a walled garden, thanks.
Yeah, but like there's cool places in Hades. Like Islands of Paradise are pretty sweet.
Well, a lot of the afterlives we've talked about discuss going to a dark, dreary place when you die, and we haven't even discussed all of them yet.
Oh, dude, it's great. But the Greek one was the best, because...
What's with the whole River of Styx thing? I feel like we're going to get popped if we don't talk about that.
Okay, so, like, the River of Styx is, like, the like, basically, like, the barrier.
That's where you arrive first when you die? Or like?
All right, so, like, you go underground, right? You're trying to get into Hades?
Sure.
You go underground.
Okay.
You go to the ground and you find the River Styx. It's like a subterranean river.
And you got to cross it.
So it's like the great concept, but you can't cross it because it's like not water. It's like
souls.
Yeah, it's like souls and weird shit, right?
And you got to get the ferryman to take you.
Yes, and that's where the whole ritualized coins on your eyes was to pay the ferryman.
To pay the ferryman. Got it.
Because even they were like, okay, you gotta pay the people because... You know, evil spirits love their money.
I feel like we may have to do a special episode just on Egypt, but is some of this based on the Egyptian knowledge or is secret wisdom stuff?
The Greeks and the Hellenistic cultures, or the Egyptians and the Hellenistic cultures were like intertwined so thoroughly.
Because I'm going to talk about the Aztec really shortly here, and a lot of what you're saying is tit for tat, like what the Aztecs believe. It's crazy.
Yeah, there's so much parallels, but anyways, you'd have to pay your way to get safe passage across.
Okay.
Remember, that was safe passage. You could try to cross, but, you know, it wasn't safe.
You just, like, jump.
You don't know what the fuck's out there, dude. Subterranean water, scary shit. I've seen all the movies. And you're like hitting the astral at that point. Anyways, there was, like, 3 places in Hades. There was the Islands of Paradise. There was another plane. I totally spaced on the name. And Tartarus. Tartarus is, like, the hell. Like the Christian conception of hell.
Yeah.
And that's where all the evil spirits and all the titans got put when Zeus took over.
Wow.
Like all the ones that like he like overthrew.
What is the dog Cerberus guarding?
Okay, yeah, so Cerberus guards the gate of Hades. So basically, he doesn't really guard the gate from the outside.
All right.
Think about that one.
So you gotta get past Cerberus to get to the river itself?
No, I don't think it's like that. Like, you gotta to get into the area. Like, I think it's more of a concept. Like, I don't know if there's like a geographical or like a mapped out thing on this.
Yeah, we're gonna have to.
Because as far as I understood it, the dog like Cerberus held the gate from the people inside from leaving.
Okay, so we're sort of doing an overview on this episode, but I don't want to shut the door on all this stuff yet.
No, this is gonna be a whole
I would
episode.
be happy, like, I don't know how long this podcast goes, but someday I'd be totally happy to revisit this topic and even like go specific into each one we've talked about, because we're sort of just covering all of them, but we're going to talk a little bit about their similarities though in this episode. I think before we completely just keep going on the track we're going and talk about, because I really want to talk about the Aztecs, and that's almost exactly like what you talk about with the Greeks.
Well, because this is a good overview, because we're going to get bogged down in the Bardo of freaking trying to explain the geographic locations and the topography of Hades, so we can't really do that because that's all speculation. So let's just move on to the Aztecs.
Because the Bardos have like stages. You know, first you go through the elements, and then you'll go to like a plane of mind, and then you'll meet the deities. And it sort of has like a process to it, and there's also a process to some of these other ones. Like in Jahannam, there's the 7 different levels, and depending on how bad you were, you go to a different level, and the bottom one is like the worst one. Man, I guess we could just launch right into what the Aztecs believe right now, and then we'll get back to Mormonism later because it's kind of funny. So yeah, so let's just jump right into that. So there's a lot of similarities between what we just talked about and the Aztecs. So when you die, most people who go through a normal life that just die when they get old, or they just die of a regular old illness, or the Aztecs had very different views of the afterlife than we do now. It really didn't matter so much about how you lived your life, and it didn't really matter so much if you were good and evil. What really mattered is how you died. So if you lived like a long natural life, you were probably going to Mictlan, which is just the underworld. And
that's only the underworld.
It's basically just the regular old underworld. Now, here's the problem with going to Mictlan. You go through a 4-year journey, and it is a lot like the Bardos. When you go through on the path to Mictlan, you go through winds that like cut your skin apart. You'll be thrashed by waters and burned by fires, and you have to pass through mountains that crash together. And the fact that there's 4 years of this sounds a lot like the Four Elements, and it's sort of speaks to like an indeterminate long amount of time. But you have to cross through all these different places to get to the throne of Mictlan, where basically you get to a place that's ruled over by the Lord of Death, which is what the name means. But the Lord of Death is called Mictlan Tek Utli, and he has a wife named Mikakakutul, the Lady of Death. I cannot say those words that well. In the Greek afterlife, you have to pay the ferryman to get through the river Styx.
The rituals, you burn them on the pyre, you put the coins. There's like also a part in the Greek that like the living have to fulfill. Like they have like duties to the dead that they have to fulfill for it to all work correctly.
Okay, well, it's similar in the Aztec afterlife. When you get to Mictlan Tekutli, the Lord of Death, you have to pay him something because you're going to be residing in his realm. It doesn't even get you special treatment or anything really that great. It just is a thing you have to do.
It's just tribute.
Yeah, so the things you had in life, you have to offer to Mictlan Tekutli, and then he just lets you chill. Actually, it seems to be more about his wife, but I really can't say the name.
Well, she's the one who wants all that shit.
Miktakutul?
Yeah, she wants all that
stuff. Miktakakutul? Miktakakutul is the closest I'm going to get.
Because he's cool. I mean, he just lets you chill. It's just she she's kind of funny.
Well, here's the thing. She's still worshipped today as the Lady of Death, which is that like goddess that seems to be like overshadowing Catholicism in South America, but also in a more subtle, I don't want to say in a more subtle form, but in a more traditional form during the Day of the Dead as La Catrina. She's a skeletal woman. She sort of represents the Day of Death in total, and so she's still worshipped in that way. And so her worship and that idea never really went away. Makes sense. So, okay, that's if you die like a normie death. That's your fate if you die a normie death. Now, basically, the more young and brutal you die, the better off you are.
You want to be young and you want it to be violent, so it should make a good movie.
Right. I don't know. The whole thing about Aztec culture is like everything is like really full of like your own personal expression, and like there's a lot of color and like verb to their whole lifestyle. So I don't know. It seems like a really like vibrant, powerful
They're
culture.
Also totally brutal.
Yeah, brutal as hell apparently.
Yeah, it's like, oh my god.
So okay, let's talk about that for a minute. So there was a way to go into the realm of the sun god, which is one of the better places, paradise, that you could go to, and that was that world, which was ruled by the sun god, was called Tonatia, and that's one place you wanted to go. That is a place you went to if you were a warrior who died in combat, if you were a trader who died on the road, like trading, if you were a woman who died in childbirth, because childbirth was considered battle.
It looks like some battle, dude.
Or if you were sacrificed, you would be taken to Tonatia, the god of the sun.
Yeah, they sacrifice you to the god. It's like, well, he's no longer our friend, he's your friend. We sacrifice him.
Yeah, it makes you wonder oh, yeah, that's cool.
Because they'd also have their games, like their little ball game, where the winning team would be sacrificed to the god because they were the good guys.
That means that they would end up going to paradise, where the other poor schlups would probably end up having to go through the horrible journey to Mictlan. And it's a dark, dreary, nasty, horrible, boring place. Like, it's not really bad. You don't get tortured. It's just like, meh. I guess you're tortured if you're really bad, I guess. So there's a little bit of that going on.
Well, you still gotta, like, pass through those mountains that crash together. That's probably hard as shit.
Yeah, it sounds horrible.
That sounds epic, though.
And your family is supposed to like help you through that by praying and, you know, all that stuff. Like in the Bardos. It sounds just like the Bardos to me.
Let's say you're a coward.
And if you so if you're a coward, that's what ends up happening. You go to Mictlan.
Is there anything lower than Mictlan?
I don't know if there needs to be. Yeah, I think if in Mictlan, if you're bad, it's just bad. More bad stuff happens to you. It's like hell. But okay, there's another place you go, which is kind of interesting. So you got the god of the sun. The other place you could go to is the god of the rain. Anything that was associated with water, even certain illnesses. I read dropsy or gout, but like drowning in water, being struck by lightning, which apparently counts as water, because, you know.
Because you're probably covered in water.
Associated with rain. Yeah, sure.
I guess so.
All that stuff would earn you a passage to paradise with the god Tlaloc. And it's eternally springtime there, and it's full of like delicious food. It's considered
Oh, so it's Indian heaven.
It sounds a lot more like Indian heaven. It's a paradise where everything is delicious and suffering does not exist.
Yeah,
it almost sounds better than the other one.
Because like Indian heaven has like the best food, I hear. Like you want to go to Hindu heaven, Hindu Indian.
I feel like Hindu heaven would be really sexy and indulgent.
Well, it's got the best food.
They got belly dancers, right?
I
they
bet. But like if you really want to get perverted and you go to the Islamic heaven, that's your perversion heaven. It's where it's just all about sex.
That's where I want to go.
And like eating and just.
That just makes it the most enlightened heaven, Andrew.
I mean, you know.
Shrugging your shoulders at me. What are you talking about? Everyone's the same age in Islamic heaven. Everyone's 33 years old. That's the research I got.
Yeah, but like there's all these women to have sex with, but like you think like if you're in heaven, you wouldn't even need to have sex. You'd just be like, well, I'm satisfied.
That's what I don't like about it. Why would you want that? That sounds horrible.
Yeah, like the human condition though, like we're totally like not things to go to heaven.
The Islamic texts say that in paradise, everyone's 33 years old, every wish is fulfilled, there's no hurt, there's no sorrow, there's no fear. Everyone is wearing sumptuous robes, bracelets, perfumes. They take in exquisite banquets served in priceless vessels by immortal youths called hori. And they recline on couches inlaid with gold and precious stones. Sounds kind of gnarly, man. Sounds pretty indulgent.
Sounds like Dubai.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The food
or Singapore or something, you know, like go to Thailand.
The food never rots, and you can just eat forever and like belch, and then you can eat again, and you.
Oh, so their idea of heaven was Rome.
And then they sweat perfume. All the stuff they drink, they sweat out as perfume. Every day in paradise is equal to 1,000 years on earth. The place is made from bricks of gold, silver, pearls, other things like that. There's horses and camels of dazzling whiteness and other creatures. There's mountains made of musk, and then rivers flow in valleys of pearl and ruby. Muhammad said, "Surely a time will come over hell when its gates shall be blown by wind. There shall be none in it, and this shall be after they have remained therein for many years." So there it is. Muhammad said, everyone goes to paradise.
But Muhammad also came up with stuff that was like convenient in the moment.
Well, I'm taking that for what it's worth. I'm going to paradise, man. No matter what kind of an infidel I've been. Me and Ice Cube are going to be reclining in our fat couches, smoking doobs, being 33 years old forever. I got like one more year, man.
Go pray to your black box.
Man, I would rather be like 26 forever than like 33. But whatever. That's cool. That's fine with me. I like Muslim heaven. That sounds ballin' to me. I'm in.
Yeah, that's just the future though. We're just gonna be like genetically modified people in like all over the world, and all the rich people will have like these designer babies who sweat perfume.
Well, can we what I read about
have no buttholes so they don't shit.
But then how do you have butt sex and no butthole?
Exactly. See, that's not allowed in Islam.
You know, I'm fine with that. I could live without it. But whatever. I can't speak for others. You got all these levels to traverse. 9 specifically in the Aztec afterlife to get to Mictlan. And it takes 4 years, like I said. Now, the thing I forgot to bring up, which I want to bring up because it is a lot like Egyptian mythology, is you are led by a psychopomp named Xolotl, which is a kind of death dog, black dog hound thing that leads you through the afterlife and may take the form of a dog. This is a lot like Anubis in Egyptian mythology. And then when you get to Mictlan, you have to give your heart to the Lord of Death. So
much like giving it to Thoth to weigh.
Yeah, or Ma'at, right?
Or Ma'at. Well,
it's Thoth. Yeah, it's Thoth and Ma'at, right? They're both there.
Yeah, they're hanging out.
They're both there.
Thing.
Yeah. Isn't Osiris there too?
And Osiris was there as well. And the others. And Ra Horqueet. And Aleister Crowley.
Oh, Aleister Crowley was there. He was hard as the Dickens.
Oh, dude, he's just like fucking the dog.
Take it.
He's all like, I am the great D666.
It's like, keep it down, Crowley. Jeez. He's like wearing some hawk mask over there. It's like, just let him have it.
Yeah, freaking cheetah pelt and a hawk mask.
Thoth is just like defending him because of all the books he wrote. He's like, he's good. Just let him hang.
He's my tarded friend. I watch them. It's my job. I get paid by the state.
Like, so to get to Miquelon, you gotta cross a field with wind that blows like flesh-scraping knives and a river of blood with fearsome jaguars. I don't know. All that stuff just sounds like the Bardos, and and after you read enough about this,
or a really cool video game, the Aztec side scroller, just all 8-bit. When you die, it's like do 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 do.
That'd be a great game. I hear that. I can't remember.
That would be a funny.
I think Guacamelee has a story like that. We may have to check it out.
Just like a little 8-bit that's like Journey to Miquelon. The game is like you just gotta pass through like 4 levels.
I think there is a game like that. I bet there's a game like that. Already.
Like it's Pitfall or.
So what happens in Mormon heaven? This one is the most wimpiest of all.
Oh, dude, Mormons caused the war with the Arachnids and Starship Troopers.
Dude, Mormon heaven is where it's at, like straight up.
Do they still have to wear the underwear?
I don't know. I think there's sex in Mormon heaven because the highest heaven is reserved for married people. The highest, most heavenliest of the heavenliest is called the celestial kingdom. And even within Mormon churches, they have a room that's sort of divided from the other rooms and is better than all the other rooms, which represents the celestial kingdom. And this highest, and even the celestial kingdom is divided into 3 sections. Not much is spoken of the lower 2, but the uppermost one is reserved for married folks, essentially. And a lot like the other traditions we spoke about, you can do rituals after your family member dies to get them into better places in heaven and whatnot. You can even marry your family member. Yeah, you can marry your dead family member to somebody to get them into a higher place in heaven.
Dude, that's so weird.
It's really cool, actually.
Dude, that is the weirdest.
I totally love all this Mormon stuff too. I actually like everything I've heard about in here. I liked
like you can get baptized for dead people.
Yeah.
Like they do rituals to baptize dead pagans and freaking non-believers around the world.
Pretty much any heaven and hell ever is better than what we were raised to believe. The colloquial pop.
Hollywood.
Pull it out your butt.
Angels with liars on clouds.
Dude, we got the crappiest, most brutal version, man. Like, even in the Aztec one's pretty brutal, but it almost sounds like it's a metaphor to me. Like, you can get reborn eventually. Like, if you're a baby in the Aztec one, you end up in a garden with trees that drip milk until you get another chance to be reborn. It's kind of strange, but there's a similar thing in Mormon heaven where if before you die the age of 8, you pretty much go right to the celestial kingdom. So you get a free pass. Even if you didn't follow any of the tenets, you were just like a little monster, you still go to heaven. Okay. And so and then there's 2 other heavens beneath the celestial heaven. There's the terrestrial kingdom, which is like almost as good as the celestial kingdom, but it's a little less good, and it's really big. And you get the grace of Christ there. Like, Christ comes and visits and hangs out and spreads his grace with you, but you don't get the fullness of the Father. You don't get to sit at the throne of the Father in the terrestrial kingdom. And the
it's a rather exclusive club, and not for the likes of you. Only the finest sort of people get to sit next to the Father in heaven.
And so the terrestrial kingdom is like for those like lukewarm Mormons who they got the word, but they couldn't quite follow it.
They couldn't convert anybody.
Yeah, they couldn't really they couldn't get married maybe.
They didn't beat their wife enough.
Hey!
They didn't ship off their child, so they didn't develop meaningful attachments with people.
Man, keep it PG, fucker. No, I do the same thing now.
Yeah, but
I'm talking shit on everyone now too. So
yeah, dude, they got some weird stuff. The Chinese one's really good though. Like that
one's
the most practical.
We gotta finish up Mormon heaven first.
All right,
and this episode's getting way too long, so because we gotta pay for these episodes. I gotta put up a Patreon to send us like $5. It'd help us, man. It's getting expensive to host this stuff.
Yeah, dude. No, do a subscribe star.
Okay, well,
they take a little more, but you get a cooler crowd.
Oh, man. That's the terrestrial kingdom. It's okay, but you don't get the fullness of the Father. Then you get the telestial kingdom, which is where the rest of us are going. Apparently, like
celestial?
Yeah, liars, philanderers, sorcerers, whoremongers.
So we get fun heaven. We get Vegas heaven.
Well, yeah, apparently telestial heaven is like
Vegas heaven.
Even telestial heaven is described as a place that is pleasant beyond all understanding. Like it's like the most beautiful earthly looking. It looks like Earth, but it's like perfected and everything's amazing. It's just Jesus and the Father don't really come and visit.
So we don't get the Jesus allegory lion coming down.
Nah, we just get to live in some heavenly place, like with all the other people.
No, that sounds cool. That sounds like the cool one. We don't want like the judgmental figure standing over. It doesn't matter how cool they really are.
Here's the thing.
They stand as a judge.
Here's the thing. According to
Joseph
Smith. Yes. Damn. I'm really bad with names in my normal life too. So.
Oh, you just had to say founder of Mormonism. I got you.
Okay. Joseph Smith says that basically what God is now, so too shall you be. And like what you are now, God used to be. Something like that. I don't have the exact quote right in front of me. There's this weird thing in Mormonism where they basically believe that God used to be something like a normal mortal, and that now what God is, so too shall you be if you're a good Mormon. And the whole idea of getting to the celestial kingdom is so that you can become like a god yourself eventually. So there's that weird idea in Mormonism where you can become a god too. So it's desirable to just be a good Mormon all the time because it's ultimately leading to a place where you're going to become the big kid on the block with your own planet.
But you like have to be married. Like you become Adam and Eve of another planet, which is like one step on the way.
What happens in like you keep referring to it as Chinese heaven?
Yeah, because Chinese it's not Taoist, it's not Buddhist, it's kind of secular in the same sense. It's the best idea because it is really Taoist though. But basically, their whole thing is there's neither a heaven nor a hell. It's just like everything's chi. And there's positive chi and negative chi, and that's not like positive means like active and negative means like not active. And so you have like when you die, your yin chi goes down towards the earth, or your earth souls go down, and then your yang chi goes up, or your heavenly souls go to heaven.
So you get a boner.
Yeah, so basically they just more viewed it as like some sort of psychedelic whole. Like there's nothing.
So you lose unity of consciousness?
Yeah, almost. Like they kind of felt like that's how it goes.
So you don't really exist anymore in that, like you don't go to heaven or a hell. There's like you split apart.
Yeah, the essences that created you return to from whence they came.
Because
ashes to ashes.
We didn't really.
Yin to yang.
I don't think either of us researched this for this episode, but according at least to Michael Aquino, in Egyptian mythology, the soul also splits into different parts. There's one soul that goes to the earth. There's one soul that goes to heaven to be judged and all that. So there's a little bit of that in Egyptian, and it makes me wonder how much of that filtered into the Greek stuff at all. Like, I don't know. Is there
maybe eventually, but this is like the Taoist stuff is like really, really recent. It's like 400 BC.
Okay.
It's not like super easy.
So what is that? There's no real afterlife, or?
Well, it used to be like the god. Like it used to be like an old school god, and then they moved that into like a sort of a force or a god principle, which then became like a unification of the energies. And it sort of became more of like, it's less of a good, bad, and more of a lucky, unlucky kind of deal, and a harmony, disharmony kind of, rather than heaven and hell.
So you want to be in a harmonious mind state when you die, basically?
Yeah. You would basically live on through your ancestors and their remembrance of you.
So so you still live in some way.
And your energies are still active. Like they just separate.
Oh, interesting.
So it's like your yin energies go into the earth and your yang energies go into the heavens. So it's like your thoughts go into thoughts, and then your body kind of returns to the earth.
So basically your energies go to where they vibrate to. Is sort of what I'm hearing from this
Yes, they become disunified and they move to where they want to be. So if the Western scheme held true, it'd be like your four elements split apart to go hang out with their own crowd.
So if you have like crazy wrathful energy, do you like end up in a wrathful place kind of thing?
I guess so. Like, there's some ghost stories about Nazis trolling like Auschwitz and stuff, like Nazi ghosts. So
I guess so to wrap it up, to end the episode, because it's getting way too long now, I guess we could end with Indian heaven, because I know a little bit about Indian heaven from reading the autobiography of Yogananda, based on what his master told him as he returned from the afterlife to give him a message. Let me see if I can recount how it went. So basically, Yogananda is in India and he's about to leave, or he might be staying there for an extended time, but it's near the second part of his life after his master, I think his name was Sri Yukteswar. I'm probably saying it all wrong. We'll just call him his master from now on. Came and visited him in physical form, like he appeared out of like a white soupy energy, like a big like ray of light, and he just materialized the body and talked to Yogananda for quite a few pages in the book about what the afterlife was like. And basically what he said is that when you die, your body dies, and then you're left with your astral body, and your astral body goes to a world that is a lot like the material world, and it has a lot of the things and pleasures of the material world, but a lot of the bad stuff is left out. Like there's no illness, there's no insects, and there's no like having to work, that kind of stuff. There's good food, and you enjoy things more for like the idea of them rather than the physical sensations. So you can still like do like stuff is still physical, but it's not as physical, and you get more of like an etheric enjoyment from stuff. But eventually it becomes a very seductive thing where you'll eventually want to incarnate into a human body again, because ultimately what you're doing is working off your karma, and your karma is your desire to experience, essentially. Something like that. Like you have to extinguish your desire to keep experiencing things on a sensual level and even on an astral level, because eventually you'll die in the astral world, and you can be reborn again in it's more like I want to call it like the realm of thought, but it's described as a realm of like pure thought, where you don't even have a slightly physical body anymore. You take on a purely an idea form. And there's even subtler levels beyond that, which is where his master said that he was preparing other people to go. But basically, you run out of wanting to experience gross stuff, and you move to more and more and more subtle stuff until you eventually reach the subtlest of the subtlest and unity with the oneness, the Brahma. But you get to keep your individuality. I mean, I don't know how much individuality you're supposed to have after you've done all that ego disillusioning over all that time, but
that seems a little bit more close to a reunion with God, to the point where you like stop existing on any sort of physical plane, and you stop wanting to do or to experience anything, or you simply want to be and exist.
Yeah, you eventually.
I'm really, really, really quiet.
Yeah,
lately.
Yeah. You eventually wear it out, and then you're like, okay, that's enough for me. Only God will do now. And then you can like visit the lower levels again to like chill out, usually at like a festival. And the festivals happen in the astral world too. So like you'll go down and like you'll have an astral body temporarily and go hang out with the other astral bodies, and then you'll like go back to your more subtle realm when it's over.
I hear Babaji visits music festivals.
Oh yeah, man, Babaji take on a human body and tell you what's up.
Yeah, man.
Come visit me. I need help.
Let's throw a music festival and invite Babaji.
Have Babaji Fest?
Yeah.
That's it. Babaji Fest coming 2020. Be there.
2020, 25.
Be there and be square and a pair. We don't care. Get down. Well, I guess everyone, That's The Whole Rabbit. We talked about a lot of heaven and hell. What it sounds like when you die is you go to a dark place that's kind of like a womb, and then you have to like experience all your different thoughts as these personified gods and deities, and then you eventually have to realize that they're actually yourself. And if you don't, then, well, you end up reincarnating by going through some weird Pornhub experience with your parents.
And
which is
people
gross.
put themselves in hell or heaven based on their own experience.
So it all depends on your attitude. Unless you're an Aztec, then it's all about how you die.
Yeah, and getting through the plains.
And then you still got to go through the damn plains.
Yeah.
So there's probably planes.
One more time, where can they find us?
You can find us pretty much everywhere. You can find us on YouTube, which is where half the people listen to us apparently, which is ridiculous. You can find us on Apple There's an app called Podcasts. Just click that and just type in The Whole Rabbit. If you have an iPhone, you could just search podcasts, and the podcast app will pop up, and then you use that app and you type in The Whole Rabbit. Then you got Spotify. We're on Spotify.
Yeah, you probably got Spotify.
Yeah. And then if you got an Android phone, you go to the Google Play Store. If you've gotten this far in the podcast, you already know this stuff. This is ridiculous. Why are we talking about this?
Because you got to do it on everyone.
Okay.
Because this is how they all end.
I guess if you're on YouTube, yeah. Get on some other platforms. They're a little easier to use for listening to podcasts. You can like fast forward and rewind and like all that stuff a lot easier. What else? Oh yeah, you can contact us at thewholerabbit@gmail.com. Oh, excuse me, it's thewholerabbitpodcast@gmail.com. You can find us on Instagram at thewholerabbit, but it's an underscore after every word, including rabbit. And yeah, hit us up on whatever platform you can find us. My name's LukeMadrid.
My name's Andrew Haskins.
And we hope you had a great time. Eat carrots, shoot lasers. Carrots, shoot lasers.